Hi everyone, Tobias here. Just to let you know that in this one we did have a couple of audio problems that we just couldn't get rid of, and we don't want to rubbish the entire recording, so hopefully you guys can tolerate it just for this one. Thanks for listening and enjoy.
Hello listeners. Hello. Me and Craig are talking rollerball today.
Yeah. In our untitled podcast, which we will name at some point. Probably by the time you listen to it, it has a name.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Like right now, we're just talking to ourselves. We're insane right now.
Yeah, basically, that's what it's like.
But we can't wait to have listeners.
Sure we can't wait for people to listen to our ramblings.
Hi, Mum.
Yeah. Shall we tell the listeners, future listeners, what this film is about?
Oh, well, Rollerball is one of my personal favorites. I really, really like this film. It's a film that my dad showed me. It's a film about like a dystopian sort of like corporate-led future where entertainment has become sort of hyper-violent, and Rollerball is such a cool fictional sport that is hyper violent. People die playing it all the time, and it's very much akin to those kind of movies that have like these sort of death game. I'm telling you, man, death game dystopian future. That is a genre in of itself. You've got like the Hunger Games as a more modern example, but there's like Running Man, there's Battle Royale, there's Death Race 2000, which came out around the same sort of time as Rollerball. I don't know if you've seen Death Race 2000, but it's so good. I love it.
I don't think I've seen that one, actually.
Oh, okay. We know what the next episode will be. Excellent.
Okay.
Death Race 2000. I love this film. We'll talk about Death Race maybe later, but Rollerball, yeah, it's one of those. It's one of those kinds of films, very akin to a lot of these films that we've seen in the past. And, you know, I suppose the details beyond that we can sort of get into as the podcast continues.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's your basic setup. You know, dystopian future, death sport.
Yeah.
Blood sport. Yeah. And I love this film. What did you think? This is because I love this film and you've never seen it before. So what are your thoughts?
So I watched it a couple of days ago. It was kind of what I expected, I guess. But actually, I think before we were just like we spoke a little bit about this film. You kind of said that a lot of it really is the action, but actually, I was surprised how much there was going on in the background. Actually, that was quite good, and I actually quite like that because I'm not really like a massive fan of sports movies, but because it has that dystopian aspect to it.
Yeah.
It feels a bit deeper. There's some meaning behind it all. I
feel like this is a sports film done right. I really do. And I think when sports films are done right, they really are very good. Like I don't have any interest in American football, but I've seen some American football. Sorry, listeners, if you're American. But I have seen some American football films that I'm like, oh, if only I liked the sport. I really like the movie. The original Longest Yard and the remake. I like both of them. So, and Little Giants. I don't know if you've seen that. That's a film from my childhood. Love it. But I didn't understand any of the rules of American football. But I love the film. When sports films are done right, they are really very good.
Yeah.
This is up there. This is, for me, it's one of my favorite films.
I always think of it in terms of like legacy. Like we were talking a bit about this in the previous podcast about The Godfather Part 2, how it kind of changed some of the rules about cinema. And I think that Rollerball maybe not changed some rules, but I think it probably even invented this genre, at least in film. I think probably it existed maybe before in books. But I'm not sure I can think of any other kind of death game dystopian future kind of films before this. I think what year did it come out? 1974 or something like that?
I think 75. But I've got a feeling Death Race 2000 might have been earlier. I'm not
Ah.
entirely sure, but I've got a feeling. But everything else I've mentioned are definitely post definitely post Rollerball. And to be fair, Death Race is like, it's more like wacky races, you know, than it is like an actual sport.
Oh, I remember this film now. They remade it at some point, didn't they? Death Race.
With Jason Statham.
Yeah.
They set it in a prison, but like in the original, the objective is to kill civilians on this cross-country race, whereas the remake, it's more about surviving the other competitors. So they do change the rules of the race a lot for the remake, and I much prefer the original because it's much more satirical, and it lampoons like the media, government, corporate America. It's very good. It's very good. As much as Rollerball is good, although I'd say Rollerball is a lot more grounded and not as like in your face with the satire as Death Race 2000 is. Death Race 2000 is very, very tongue in cheek, whereas I think Rollerball takes itself quite seriously.
Yeah. So what I really liked about it was this corporate future that they're envisioning, like where corporations run the world, and there's no nations anymore. I think was it Cletus says that he remembers when there used to be 3 nations.
Yeah.
And like now there are no nations. There's just the energy company, there's this company and that company, and they just run the world. And I think that because like obviously there are things about the film that have aged not so well. Like obviously the aesthetics to it is like this is not the future you're thinking is going to happen. But the idea, this idea of corporations kind of running the world, I think is something that's still very, very even more relevant now. Actually, I would say
Absolutely.
than at the time. And also, it's kind of like it kind of predicted globalization, because globalization wasn't really a thing people talked about back then in the 70s, I believe. It's more the last 20, 30 years we've seen that. So it's quite interesting.
I really do like these dystopian future films, you know, from the 70s, you know, because they really do, you know, they come full circle. You watch them back nowadays and you're like, damn, like, they had something, man. They had something there. Like, when we make them now, you know, we have the gift of hindsight. You know, this was predicted in the 70s. Like, but it's funny that you bring up the aesthetics because apparently the filmmaker, I think his name's Norman Jewison, he cites Kubrick as a very, very big influence, especially Clockwork Orange for this film. And I think aesthetically you can see it, but in the choices of music, he took his inspiration from 2001, Space Odyssey, because he felt that when you have classical music, it's timeless, so it never ages. And what makes me laugh, it's literally the only thing that didn't age.
Really?
The whole film is so 70s.
Yeah,
but the music is like definitely as timeless as 2001, but you know, it just made me laugh that his intention was to make it feel timeless. Like, it's so 70s.
Yeah, I was actually had a note about the music. Trying to seem timeless by using something that feels older. And I was like, that's interesting that's actually something that was intended.
Yeah. Well, I mean, classical music has never died. I mean, you know, some of these pieces are hundreds of years old, and they still hold like this because they've been used for so many different things. Like, they all have this cultural weight even now. And like you hear a certain song, it invokes an emotion you probably saw in a movie. Do you know what I mean? With that piece. Like that piece of music where it's like dum 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 dum. You either think of X Factor or you think of the beginning of Battle Royale. And like, that's every time I hear that music, even like when my mum puts X Factor on when I was a kid, and that music would come up, I'm seeing Battle Royale in my head. Like, I can't help it. I really can't help it. Speaking of like the 70s and not feeling timeless, I'm going to shoot something at you, Craig. What year do you think Rollerball is set in? I don't think they mention it in the film.
So I actually saw, that's funny you mentioned this. I saw this like chart of dystopian movies and the years that's supposed to happen in. And I think that it's not too far from today, isn't it? It's supposed to be like 2027 or something like that.
Well, I mean, you're not far off, but believe it or not, it's meant to be 2018.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah. So we're 4 years past it now. So thank God we survived. But yeah, 2018. It always makes me laugh when we've lived past the future in a great film like Back to the Future. When it got to 2015, everyone was like, "Well, it's not Back to the Future yet, so got to wait a bit longer." But let's get back to Rollerball. So, Did you like the film? Were you a fan? Because I love this film.
Yeah, I liked it. And immediately I kind of guessed where it was going because I think there have been so many films that have tried to replicate this. Like, there's always someone pulling the strings behind, like a boss or something like that, trying to stop the guy who's doing really well, like at the sport or whatever, to make it, or at least make them do something, and then they decide not to, and they seem a hero. It's exactly like with James Caan's character. And I think the most obvious one that people will see today is Hunger Games when they see this film. But I think there are a lot of other films that have the same thing. Yeah, and like the whole plot of the movie is basically he's just getting too popular, basically, isn't he? And they need
well,
to.
this is it. I mean, we sort of learn this slowly, don't we? Because like the movie opens on like like it just establishes the sport. It doesn't set up any story. It's just here's a 15-minute scene. This is what the sport is. Get on board. It perfectly opens the film. It's like, okay, strap in. This is setting up the world, and you get to see how the sport works, and you see how violent it is. And then you see how they're celebrating and they really love James Caan. And then, you think he's going to get something great. And then he gets called up into the office and the guy's like, yeah, we want you to retire, basically. And he's being forced into retirement. And, I just think it's a great way to set up the film because, it perfectly sets up the world, the attitudes of the people within that world. And then you see all this praise on one character, and then boom, it's being ripped from him, and you can't help but like strap yourself in. You're like, okay, I'm strapped in for this story. I'm really interested in the plot. I really think this film works on so many, is levels. It's directed brilliantly.
I was also thinking about how they started the film and how it progresses, like in the next few scenes, like when he goes to see Bartholomew. And I was thinking, actually, this is kind of a bit sharp for a 70s movie, because some 70s movies, they really drag it out back then. There's so much setup that's not always necessary. It doesn't always get into the meat of the action, It kind of holds back and sets up several things, while I feel that, with Rollerball, it really just jumped right into it. This is the thing. This is how this is what's happening, and it just goes on. And there's not really it doesn't feel like we're ever hanging back for a second. The narrative directs the way that the story is told. There's nothing else happening. No tangents really. It just really, it made sense actually, and it was quite nice to see that in a 70s film.
And they don't over-explain it either. They don't over-explain themselves. Like, you do have to pay, like, a modicum of attention to get what's going on. It's, it's not spoon-fed. It's just very well told. It's very tightly made. But yeah, great. I mean, look, I'm really glad you like this film, man. I'm really glad. And I hope anyone listening, if you haven't seen it, please go and watch it. It's a cracking little film. James Caan's character, he's just sort of getting too popular amongst, the people. And, I suppose, because I think even James Caan's confused, like, why they keep bringing this up like they're afraid of him, and he's like, why are they afraid of me? He doesn't really get it, does he? Like he's clued in enough to figure out, you know, something isn't right here, but he doesn't quite get it. It's like, I mean, what do they want? What is there to gain from making him retire? I think we find out that he's been playing rollerball for what, like 15 years or something. He's the only player to have survived. Like most players die in the game. So he's like this big cultural hero, you know, that like this guy just can't die. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he has no intention of retiring. He's like this unstoppable force, and everyone loves him. Like no one's cheering for the team; they're all cheering for him.
Even the other side, I noticed.
Even the other
times.
side, yeah, exactly. So it's like the whole world loves this guy. He gives the whole world hope for some kind of, you know, to rise, I guess. So I suppose he threatens this sort of totalitarian system that these, you know, corporate bigwigs are trying to establish. I mean, they've already established it. And I suppose his refusal to quit is him sort of rising to John Connor level. Like he's going to be the leader of the resistance. Like, you know, all the rebels will rally behind him because, you know, he's at the front line. You know, he's going to become John Connor, you know.
Yeah. And even I think Bartholomew, he explains in a later scene towards the end, the game was not designed for people to be good at it. It's supposed to die. Yeah. It's supposed to fail.
No one's meant to live through it.
Yeah, the whole point of the game is to crush belief in an individual spirit, you know, something along those lines. So they keep being dependent on the system that they currently have. There are no alternatives. You can't be an individual and do what you want. You have to rely on us and do what we tell you. Standing out by yourself is pointless. You'll die, you know.
Yeah. Keep to the status quo.
Yeah, and he threatens that by being too good at a game that's you're not supposed to be good at. So yeah, he shows the people that being an individual is possible, even though, does he really feel like an individual? I guess I'm questioning the game and how it might show that, but
I mean, I suppose let's get into some more details, but like later in the film we find out that there was some kind of history with his wife and the corporate big shots. So we've got like this, something happened where they took his wife away, probably some kind of ultimatum. But do they explain it? I don't recall an explanation in the film.
No, so she I think her name is Ella. She comes and visits him, and they sleep together and they walk around. I think she tries to convince him to just accept their offer. Like there's a discussion about freedom, and like James Caan's character Jonathan is saying freedom is being free to do what you want to do, while she says freedom could also be freedom of poverty and not having to, you know, having something to rely, having like a safety net almost. And I don't think, they don't actually explain what could have happened. I think that at one point at the beginning they say, but maybe it's not the truth, that some other an executive liked her, so he had to give her up.
Yeah, that's the thing. We know there's some history, but we don't. This is, as you say, we don't necessarily know how true. Like maybe it was just to send a message or what have you. But yeah, I mean, they don't over-explain that, and this is one of those movies that it doesn't hold your hand. It's like, just get on board, and you'll have a good time. Do you not love the sport? Like, rollerball is so cool.
It's a bit camp and silly looking at it, like with the roller skates and stuff. Like if someone was going to completely remake it as a new, like make this film again, but we're not going to talk about the remake. I'm not talking about that. Like remake it, but with a new sport. So let's say we kept the storyline the same, but the sport was different. I imagine today it'll be a lot more violent.
There's basketball.
Yeah.
It's funny you bring up the remake, because I watched this last night, and I tried to make it a double feature, and I watched I tried at least to watch the remake after, and I just fell asleep very early on. I was knackered after the first one. Like, I had to squeeze it in. It's been a tight schedule. So I was absolutely knackered by the remake. So, but it's got Oz from American Pie. So
I don't even remember him. I imagine it's probably killed his career if it was crap.
I mean, Rollerball, the remake is. I mean, the actual sport is a bit crazier because they put ramps in there. I suppose the only thing missing from the original is ramps. If they had ramps, it would be a lot more fun. But so I've got actually a little bit of trivia. So the audiences that watched the film actually loved the sport and loved the action, and there was word of actually developing roller sport into a legitimate sport, just safe. And the director, because the film is meant to be anti-violence, he really hated the idea to make the sport a legitimate thing. But people really wanted them to do it. And I can see why. It's so bloody cool. You know, yeah, all right, I know what you mean about the roller skates, but motorcycles, people on roller skates, literally beating the crap out of each other. Like, I reckon America today would love that shit. They love NASCAR. It's the same
Yeah. You know, it was quite interesting about the final match in Rollerball in New York. How, like, so they keep changing the rules throughout the film. And it gets to the point there's no substitutions, there are no penalties, and it's unlimited time. And it's basically just turned the sport into a death match. Because then it just becomes who survives. I was like, imagine that they did that with football or any sport. So basically, we're not playing anymore. We're just going to kill each other.
they're doing that with like fighting sports, boxing, UFC. I mean, you see how beaten the shit out of these guys get. Like, you know, I don't think I'd survive in a ring with Conor McGregor. Even 2 minutes. 2 minutes, I reckon I'm dead. Like, there's no like concussion, there's no coma. I'm just dead. I'm in the ground.
I'd just shit myself and cry.
Yeah, and that's just what happens when he looks at you. Let alone what happens when he punches you. So yeah, I'm out. But speaking of the rules, I have a little surprise for you. I have written down the rules. I have the rules of Rollerball right in front of me. Are you interested in finding out exactly how this game works?
Yeah, go on.
Right. So one game of Rollerball lasts for an hour, and it's divided into 3 20-minute periods. Right. We pretty much see that on the scoreboard. That much is pretty obvious. In fact, everything that I'm about to read is within the film. It's just been organized into, for the pod. So each team has 12 players, and you've got 9 skaters and 3 bikers, right? And then a steel ball is released into the ring, as you see, like it's like a roulette wheel almost. And you have, and the first team to pick it up attempt to go on the offense, and the other team will try and defend or tackle. But there are 2 zones. There's an inner rim and an outer rim. And you've got to grab the ball before it goes into the central gutter of the inner rim. And when it does that, it's then out of play. You re-release the ball. So anytime the ball's out of play, the new ball is released. It's made of steel. I don't know if I mentioned that. It's made of steel. A ball must be visible at all times. Otherwise, it's considered out of play or dead. So if you cover the ball, that's out of play. New ball released.
But
although I do love. Go on.
I think there are a couple of moments where it's not completely visible. I mean,
James Caan can't hold it the whole game, Craig. I mean, come on.
No, but I mean, like, there's in the match with Tokyo. I think there's a moment. There is a bit where one of the guys on the Tokyo team scores. and like the ball is kind of hidden, I think, or it's I don't know. They pass it very quickly. I don't know. But I was thinking, doesn't that break the rule about it not being hidden? Because I think when the ball is not hidden, they have to hold it up right in the air to show that they have it. Yeah,
that's it. Well, I mean, this game sort of transcends rules. Let's be honest. I mean, I'm going through tentative rules here. I don't think any of these are for. I mean, and to be fair, I think the Tokyo game they did change like limited penalties or something. So maybe not showing the ball won't consider it as like a foul. Maybe.
Maybe. Yeah.
Could be just because they changed the rules. But yeah, it's meant to be visible. Do you want to know about like the roles of the bikers and the skaters?
Go on.
Excuse me, I'm just having a bit of water. So the bikers, they can't actually attack anyone. That is against the rules. They can only block, but they can't use force. But obviously, we see in the scenes that obviously skaters utilize the bikes to build momentum as well by grabbing onto the back. So they have numerous different purposes, but they can't actually use force against the skaters. No one can use force against anyone on the floor. If they're down and you hurt them, that's a foul, and you give up a point to the opposite team as well. So they'll get a point. Obviously, that goes out the window in the last two games for sure. People are getting beaten the crap out of on the ground. Skaters can use force against each other, but they can't use force against the bikers or players on the ground, as I've already said. So they can't actually hurt the bikers either, but they can hurt each other. And if there is a foul committed, the person who commits that foul goes out of play for 3 minutes and the other team gains possession and a point. Any foul, the other team gets a point and they get possession. So there you go. That's the rules of rollerball. And for Harry Potter fans out there, I think it's like proper Quidditch. This is what Quidditch should be.
This is what it would be like in the Muggle world.
Yeah, this is like proper. No, this is like, you know, Quidditch with a fucking flair. Like fuck the Quidditch that you grew up with. That wasn't real Quidditch. Watch rollerball. That's some serious level Quidditch. You know, it's like 3D chess compared to chess. That's what rollerball is to Quidditch. Watch rollerball, guys. I swear, it beats out Quidditch, hands down. Yeah. So that's the rules of rollerball. I'm guessing you picked up on at least some of those while watching the film.
Oh yeah, I think it's not too difficult. You kind of just get it from watching it. Like, there was no random hidden rules that you just kind of discovered part of the way through. Like, for example, like, it's not like with football, the offside rule. A lot of people don't know. Yeah. Actually, I'm still not even sure I fully understand it.
Come on, Craig.
You know what I mean? Like, there's not any of these complicated rules that will just stop the game. It doesn't have anything like that. You watch it and you get it. Okay, there's a metal ball. It has to go in that hole. People can kind of beat up each other a little bit. People die. They go around the ring. You get it, really.
I suppose that's another rule I forgot to mention. There's 2 goals and you have to shoot in the goal. I completely forgot to mention that in the rules. My bad. But yeah, it's not complicated. It's very fun. I honestly, I wish they had made it a real sport. I love it.
Even the death part.
In fact, apparently, it's based on a short story. And in the short story, murder is actually the primary goal of rollerball. So you're meant to murder each other in the original story. But obviously in the movie, they only start encouraging murder just to stop James Caan, really, just to stop the rise of Jonathan.
Yeah. Shall we speak a bit?
Go on.
About the actors and some other themes and stuff.
So, James Caan, right? I mean, look, he's a great actor, and I love him. hadn't remembered just how like it's a very intentional like wooden performance at the beginning, don't you think? When he's talking to Bartholomew, and it's very like, well, you know, my team need me. He's very, very reserved. He's like, my team need me. And he's basically being told, you need to retire because you're getting too big. And he's being very, very calm. Like he's almost, like he's done this before. Like he's had similar chats with them like this before. And he's not remotely surprised by it. But they don't go into that. But I feel like he performs it that way. But it is an odd performance, I thought, because it's very like, I think in hindsight, I think it's because he already knows more than he should, perhaps. He already expects it, maybe.
I just find him in that role kind of strange anyway. I don't know. I think I'm so used to thinking of him. Because we were recently watching The Godfather Part 2. Well, he's not in that, but he's in the previous. Well, actually, he is in the end.
He is at the end, yeah.
Yeah, but my point was that I'm used to him being this kind of a very different way when I see him on screen.
Yes.
More energetic, a bit more agitated, aggressive, that kind of New York way of speaking. And here he comes with very, like you said, very reserved. I feel he's kind of trying to imitate a very simple sports star who just doesn't really think about these kinds of things much. He's just, he loves the sport, doesn't think with his brain, thinks with his, you know what I mean? He's a sports guy.
But he seems to be a step, like I felt that, it always felt like he was a step ahead. Like the fact that he suspected anything, I think surprises the guys that are sort of at the top, and because it surprised me. If I was him, I'd have just retired. I'd be like, this isn't worth it. I'll just retire. I'm the most famous man on the planet. I'd just retire. And I love that, like, we'll probably talk about it in a sec, but like the end of the film where just everyone is watching that final death game, and he is just showing up corporate America to the world. It's so well done.
I
know what you mean. It's strange seeing him in a sports role.
Yeah.
And reserved. Like you said, he's quite energetic. So all of his energy is going into the actual game rather than the performance, which is strange. It seems very intentional from James Caan. I don't think this is a bad performance. This is intentional. And it makes me question, where this character is. As I say, I'm pretty sure, I certainly took from it anyway, that he's like a step ahead of everyone else. Maybe he pretends to be dumb or pretends to not know, but he's not stupid. Do you know what I mean?
Perhaps, yeah. You know who else I was thinking about as well is the actor who plays Bartholomew. And like I was like, I'm so sure I've seen that guy before, and I'm actually still not sure. I was looking him up on Wikipedia, and I'm like, I don't know where I've seen him, but there's something about his eyebrows that seems so familiar. And like the only other thing,
you sure you don't think it's Ernest Borgnine? I don't think it is Ernest Borgnine.
The guy is called John Houseman. Yeah,
I can't say the name rings a bell.
He was in The Fog, and he was also in a Naked Gun film, one of the last ones. So, yeah,
I like Naked Gun.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I hadn't recognised him, if I'm honest.
Yeah, I think the eyebrows. I don't know. Maybe just because he looks a little bit like someone else. Maybe he looks a bit like Alfred Hitchcock in a funny way. Yeah,
maybe.
And then who else? Else I was thinking as well is the women in the film. I was thinking about the representation of certain characters. So we have, like, it's another way that the film is kind of aged, and it's going to happen. Like with women, I feel actually I was a bit surprised by one moment in the film that I thought, it's a bit more open-minded than I was expecting for the 70s. There's one during the party. And the guy, I think he's called Moon Pie, takes a girl upstairs, And then a bit later, you see her crying. It's like, so they're acknowledging, like, it's not just like, everyone just wants to have sex all the time. There's like, these guys are not great guys, you know.
Yeah.
There is some misogynistic shit going on. It's like, I felt, okay, I was a bit surprised to see that, especially towards a character that you're supposed to have a bit of, like, you're supposed to identify a bit with him a little bit.
Right, yeah,
Because
because
he's a
it's
good
meant
guy.
to have weight. It's meant to have weight when, spoiler alert for those listening, but when he dies, that's meant to really hold some weight. You're meant to like the guy. And yeah, you do see him, you know, go out, take a girl into a room, and then she comes out crying. And it's like, well, he's not
He
the
sexually
kind of
assaulted her.
guy. Exactly, yeah, he's not the kind of guy you'd want to spend much time with. But,
Yeah.
you know, we are meant to root for him. So yeah, I suppose it's that sensibilities of the 70s, you know, that has been phased out in the last, 50 years.
Yeah.
I mean, interesting that you bring that up, because the little bit of the remake that I watched last night before falling asleep, the team is actually unisex. There's men and women in the team, and they all share a locker room together. Men and women, they're all naked and getting in the shower and all that, and they're all there. So there's girls with their boobs out, there's guys with their schlongs out, and everyone's like, no one pays any attention to it, or except for one bit. I'm pretty sure that someone pays attention at one point, but it's like it's made, it's like someone does a come on, but everyone is generally just sort of ignoring the fact that everyone around them is naked, and it's just accepted that it's a unisex locker room, which, goes very different with the original.
I was also thinking about that as well, like about men and women in sports. And I was just thinking, like, also like the English football team, England's women's team. I think they won the Euro, right, recently. And
Yes, they did. Good girls.
No one cared. Like, it felt like no one cared. It's like, come on. If it was men, everyone would be like, yeah, be like partying on the streets. But the women win and like,
I
okay.
mean, no, it's funny you say that, because when I was on Facebook, all my friends were saying, "Oh, it's come home, it's come home." I'm like, I thought it was the Euros. You can't say it's come home unless it's the World Cup. Then it's come home. So, on my Facebook, at least, people were talking about it, and rightly so. But they were getting it wrong. It wasn't the World Cup; it's the Euros. So you can't say it's come home, as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, no. Good on them. I mean, to be fair, they did really well in the World Cup as well last time they played. Like, yeah, they're a really good team. The women's England team, they're very, very good, and they're getting more accolades than the men's team are. So yeah, I think absolutely think women's football should take its place in renowned sport. Yeah, they did well. They did well to bring it back. Well, they didn't bring it back. They did well to win the Euros.
I was also thinking about what other things about women. So, like, also, a big thing that they're assigned men throughout the whole film. Is that also a thing in the remake as well? Are people assigned?
I mean, I didn't actually get very far. I think I watched the first game of Rollerball, the locker scene, and then I crashed out. I was knackered, honestly. I couldn't talk more about the remake, if I'm honest. I have no memory of it. I just can't imagine it being very good. It got what did you say it got? Like a 3 point something.
3.1 on IMDb. It's you could fit that in the remaining stars that are not filled for the original. It would. So it's got 6.6. That'll bring it to 9.7.
Yeah. That's embarrassing.
That's very embarrassing.
I'm actually quite surprised that this film isn't rated higher on IMDb. I can only imagine that's because not many people have seen it, I'm guessing.
Actually, let's speak about that, because I would put it at least a 7 or an 8. But what's
it's that good, right?
Yeah, I don't see what's really holding it back, to be honest.
I mean, it does feel very 70s. And of course, as I said earlier, the director really wanted to make it feel timeless. So I suppose it doesn't really achieve in that. Whereas 2001 Space Odyssey could come out today exactly the same, and it wouldn't feel like it was made.
Oh, really? Come on, you know it would. You know it would. Like, it's a
I don't.
fantastic film, but the way that it's filmed will give it away.
I honestly, I think if you, okay, maybe not exactly as it was made. I still, you know what? No, I'm going to stand by it. I really do think that you could watch that film today in the cinema, and it's just as amazing as any blockbuster that comes out nowadays. I mean, not as much as going on in it. Sure, it's a very long-winded, uneventful film, but you know it's breathtaking. The shots are incredible. The set design is incredible. The prop design is incredible. Everything looks like plausible modern day, except the TV screens. That's the problem with with movies in the 60s and 70s. All these really bad TV screens all over the walls. It's in all of them, and yeah, like it does make the film feel very dated. I seem to recall it in Clockwork Orange as well.
Yeah.
Even Total Recall, which came out in like the 90s, does like all these big TVs and shit. So yeah, I think it's always something that makes a film feel old. All these big TVs on the wall. Like nowadays, when you do the future, it's like a hologram or something, which I also don't love. But maybe that'll actually be a thing. So, you know, maybe. But this is the thing in 2001 Space Odyssey, they literally have iPads. So like it, even when they're like on the iPad, it really doesn't feel dated. It's like, yeah, I remember it feels like it would have come out in 2008 then instead of 2001. It feels like it came out in 2008. It's like, yeah, they've got fucking iPads. It's mental. It's literally mental. Like 2001. Oh, yeah. No, I really don't think that film is aged badly at all.
Yeah. Not aged.
Whereas Rollerball, it does feel incredible.
70s.
70s, yeah.
Yeah.
And you know what? James Caan's suits lend a lot to that. Although he does look incredible in those suits.
Yeah.
I wish wearing those clothes were acceptable today, because I would rock the shit out of a collar like that. I would love to wear the suits that James Caan is rocking in this film. Crazy cool suits.
Yeah. You know, I was also thinking about some things that I thought. There's one scene I'm thinking of now. The more I think about it, the more pointless it feels. So towards the end, when he finally goes to Geneva to see this giant computer, because he wants to find information, and I just think it was such a waste of time, because maybe I'm just a bit of a nerd here, but I kind of know that, like, so we've been told a lot in the film that books and anything that's any information is being altered by the corporations that control the world, because they're controlling the information, not to give people, I guess, ideas of rebellion or whatever.
Yes.
And so you're going to go there to ask a computer which has like all the information all the information that it has is being changed. So it's just
not credible.
Pointless. Yeah, so of course it doesn't work.
Well, I mean, we do find something out though. When what's the computer's name? Like Zero, something like that.
Yeah, Zero.
Well, there is something tells me that there's something going on thematically there that I'm missing to include it. I'm not sure. I agree with you. I'm not entirely sure what the purpose of that is. But if I was to have a guess, they specify that the 13th century was misfiled or was lost.
Yeah.
Like the guy, and I've since watching the film for the second time, I'm thinking like, what? Not the second time, but like recently, I'm thinking what important happened in the 13th century that could be relevant to maybe the government intentionally misfiling it, or maybe is it trying to talk about how unorganized they are, or they don't know what they're doing, where an entire century can go missing in the history, archives. So like, because they refer to the computer as a filing cabinet, and then they misfiled the 13th century. So yeah, I don't really know what they're saying, but I feel like that scene is important thematically. I just think I'm missing quite what they meant by it. I don't know if you have any thoughts on it, but
it's interesting that you say that maybe they don't know what they're doing and they're just making mistakes here and there, and it's just a bit of a mess. It makes me think of a documentary maker I quite like called Adam Curtis, who in one of his most recent documentaries kind of suggests that today we don't really have a vision of the future anymore. No society really has anything to aim for. Like, for example, if you go back into the 70s and the 80s and stuff, you have communism and capitalism. You have these opposing views, and they give different ideas what the future should be. And now today, we've kind of run out. We don't really have that anymore. We don't really have any idea what the future can be in this corporate world where only money and corporate control exist. What is there really to do? What's the point of it, really? So it's interesting.
It's funny you say that, because I saw something online the other day that like Saudi Arabia are going to like create a new city, and it's like just a line, and there's going to be no cars, and they're going to have public transport, and it's just going to you be able to get anywhere in this city in 20 minutes or something. And this line is meant to be like hundreds of kilometers long, and it's just a line and everything built up on itself. And it'd have schools and everything. It'd have everything that you'd need in a city built up in this line just across the desert. And then on the outside, they were going to have a big mirror, so it just looks like the desert. And I saw this video, and I'm like, that can't be real, but apparently it is. People are telling me about it at work, and I'm like, that's mental. That sounds so futuristic. Sounds like Brazil, doesn't it? Sounds like Brazil or something.
That's another great film, Brazil.
Oh, Brazil's great.
Yeah. But yeah, this city is like, I think it was $1 trillion project, and it's going to be called Neom or something like that. Neo with an M on the end. Yeah, a lot of people being...
I couldn't believe it was real.
Yeah, there was... I was joking with a few friends recently that... imagine is that could be rules. You're banished from the city and they just throw you out, and you have like 24 hours. No, like maybe not 24 hours, like 5 hours till the sun rises and the sun hits the giant mirror. It's going to eradicate you or something like this. Like, yeah, it seems a bit ridiculous, the whole idea of this, basically a giant mirror. Because you imagine being like not too far from it, and the sun just starts bouncing back. I don't know, like 100 kilometers away, it just burns down over the city or something. Whoopsie!
Yeah, it just turns into a giant. Yeah, just a giant kid with a magnifying glass, and we become ants. Yeah, it'd be brutal. It'd be absolutely brutal. It'd be so funny though. It'd be like really funny. They spend all this money, put it up. They realize it's way more dangerous to have it this way. They have to take it all down again. That'd be so funny. Although wouldn't be good for the world economy. Let's be honest.
No.
So we can't hope that it'll fail. We can't hope, but it would be amusing.
Yeah.
Let's go back to Rollerball, because I think really the last thing we need to talk about is the last game of the movie, the World Cup, the championship final. And I love the ending as well, but we'll get into that in a sec. But this game of Rollerball is bloody brutal, like seriously brutal.
It's basically just a death match.
Yeah,
it's basically just kill the other people on the other team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's encouraged, and it's like, and everyone gets on board, and I just love how slowly throughout the game it just becomes so brutal and unrelenting that just the audience stops cheering but can't stop watching. You know, they're still watching, but they do sort of realize, like, well, we're maybe taking this a little bit far, this death game. You know, not that any death game can be taken, you know, but yeah, like, I mean, at least they eventually realized this is insane to have as a real sport. But yeah, I mean, like when they're picking everyone off and you're like, no penalties, no timeouts. So it's like, right. So all the rules we went through earlier, right? All that's out the window. Just beat the living shit out of each other and maybe throw a ball into a hole if you can get round to it. Like, it's insane. It's absolutely insane. But it's brilliant at the same time. And I love how he outsmarts the guy by hiding behind the fire. What do you think of that final scene? Because I bloody love it, and that final shot as well. I really want to talk about that final shot. I love it.
Well, I don't know. I didn't really, to be honest, I wasn't massively impressed. I mean, I kind of guessed something like this was going to happen.
Well, of course, but usually with the tropes that have been established sort of after this, in terms of like the death game genre, is usually the guy will eventually just end up leading the rebels to some kind of uprising. Like, it happens in Running Man, it happens in Hunger Games, Battle Royale 2. So the aftermath of Battle Royale 1, in the second one, they pick up and like the winner of the original film is now like trying to take it to the establishment. So they usually end up with the hero becoming the leader of the rebellion. Although but this is the thing, that final shot though, I guess sets that up, because I do love that, where he just starts accelerating around the ring and everyone's just like, Jonathan. Oh, I think it's really weird that his name's Jonathan. Like, if you're gonna write a movie and you're gonna have a lot of extras chanting a name, I mean, a better name, I reckon. Like, Jonathan is just such a mouthful. Jonathan E. Not even like Johnny E, but Jonathan E. I just think is a really strange choice for us, for something that you're going to be hearing a lot throughout the movie. But they start chanting Jonathan, and he's accelerating, and then then it just freezes, the music hits, and it's like, and then the fucking, we get that crash zoom into his face, although the quality of the camera doesn't really hold up in that last shot. It really, really doesn't.
But you know exactly what's going to happen next. You know that he's realized what his next thing is to do. Basically, he realizes that they see me as something to stand behind, and you know that maybe he's going to fight against the status quo. Basically, you know it instantly from that shot.
Yeah. So bloody good. So I'm guessing there are things you didn't like then, because you didn't like the ending.
Well, it's not that I didn't like it. It's just I wasn't as impressed as I think you were.
I do love it.
So what other things are there that happened? Also, representation of Asians, I was thinking, is a bit that shows its age. Well, but I think that they mostly put that on the Moon Pie character, who is the one that we were saying before.
You say that, but the Asian guy who comes in to do the like brief with them, because they're going to play against Tokyo, they say that the players on the Tokyo team utilize karate and Hapkido, and I'm pretty sure Hapkido is Korean. So,
and you know what? I don't even think they really did they?
I didn't. I mean, I did karate for 13 years. I did not notice any karate while they were just beating the snot out of each other. I didn't see any karate. I mean, I'm not saying I was very good at karate, and I didn't even go all the way to black, but I did karate for many, many years, and I did not notice anything that I'd learned in there. But maybe I'm from a different school, I'm from Shotogun karate. I don't know what kind of karate they were doing, if any at all.
I don't think there was. Yeah. Also I was thinking about is where they filmed it. So I read, if you look on Wikipedia, one of the first things they mention is that
Munich, right?
Yeah, I think they filmed it in the UK and in Germany, but all the cast are American. Although I think some of the women are British because they didn't sound American, or maybe it's just the style they were speaking in the 70s.
Well, to be fair, there was that sort of like accentless accent that a lot of actors had, like Cary Grant and stuff, who were like sort of Englishy, American-y, you know, sort of super well spoken, and no one actually speaks like that in real life.
Yeah. And then there was a couple of moments I thought that's definitely not in America. Like there was the scene where they started shooting those trees, which I felt a bit bad about. Like, oh, they like destroyed 5 trees for this film. But it just looks like England.
Look, I mean, you know, you can't really get hung up, can you? If you, I mean, it's a tree. The tree's 50 years old. It's been 50 years dead at this point, Craig. You know, nothing we can do about it now. You just plant a new one. They're like, I watch like those like old westerns from the 60s where they literally just push fucking horses down a fucking hill. And they're like, yeah, you know, we'll just sell it for glue when we're done. Like, gets to the bottom, legs are broken. Poor fucking horse. I feel really bad for horses in 60s westerns. Your heart should be bleeding for the horses.
I mean, yeah, you got a point. I was also thinking about there were a few shots we're talking about, you know, how it doesn't age well aesthetically. Towards the end, I think when it's going to Switzerland, and it's very modernist buildings, and I think that's definitely Germany. And it's like I kind of found it a bit funny, like the American idea of the future is Germany in the 70s, basically. Like just this is an improvement of what we have, basically.
I mean, there was still a lot of fear about Germany in the 70s, I feel. You know, the memory of the war wasn't quite as old as people would have liked. Like it's easy for us now to look back and think, oh, it was only a war. But back then, I think there was still a lot of paranoia about Germany.
You still had many people who'd lived in that war.
Exactly, yeah. You know, so yeah, I think that there's probably an element of that. You know, Germans, you know, often playing bad guys in movies. I mean, that carried on into the 90s. Even if you look at Die Hard, you know,
I think about that now, but in the sense of Russians. There's always I get so tired. It's like, oh, he's a Russian bad guy. Like for example, Tenet or Tenet, sorry. They're the bad guys, Russian. I'm like, come on, like, can we have some diversity in our bad guys, please?
especially when you got a Northern Irish lad to play the Russian.
Yeah,
and you know, it's like Kenneth Branagh could have played that. Yeah, it was a strange choice to go Russian. I felt with Tenet. I do like that movie though. Really like that movie. All right. Well, I think that's pretty much Rollerball.
Yeah. Should we try and summarize it?
Fucking amazing. It's a great fucking movie. What else is there to say? We've literally just spent an hour saying it's a fucking great movie. That's it. That's all. That was that. You know what? Let's cut the whole podcast and we just release it's a fucking good movie and be done with it.
We can do that like for many shows if you like, for any film, just open like that. It's a fucking good thing. Watch it. It'll just be a list.
Yeah. So that, all right, guys, you've seen a development in the podcast happen before your ears. Now it's completely changing. Completely changing. Now don't expect it to be longer than 10 seconds a pop. Oh dear. But yeah, it's a bloody brilliant movie. It walks themes that we've seen before, but it does it first. So I love it.
Yeah, it's one of those influential ones. It's one of those 70s gems that probably many people haven't heard of, but it's you'll see how influential it is when you watch it, and on multiple ways actually, in terms of like this kind of death match kind of thing, and also the dystopian ideas. Because that also, you can see that in other things, other films, other like that have nothing to do with sports. You know, it's just a dystopian kind of theme.
You see it in things like Equilibrium and The Matrix, even. You know?
Even more, and even not even much longer after this film, you'll even have Blade Runner, which I'm not sure when that came out. Roughly the same year.
82.
Maybe it preceded it then. It's super influential, and people should definitely watch it.
Yeah. No, yeah, I really hope, if anything, this podcast has done, it should be to get more people interested in Rollerball. It is a bloody good film. And I think a bit of an unsung gem of the 70s. There's a lot of well-known films from the 70s, and I think this should be one of them. It is great.
Yeah. Cool. I think we should say goodbye now.
We should, but before we do, I think the humble listeners at home deserve to get a little flavor of what's to come in the next episode. Now, I know that we haven't really discussed this, Craig. But do you have any ideas? Otherwise, I do have an idea.
I'm wondering, you're talking about the next one, right?
I am.
Yeah. Are we going to keep going with the 70s, or are we going to look for something newer? Are we going to we could also do some films we hate. So there's a lot of ways we can take this.
Agreed, but I would like to keep it with the theme of one of us has seen it, one of us hasn't. I really like the theme. I want to keep rolling with it. So if we can, okay, guys, let's do it this way. We're going to hit up the 70s again next episode, and then maybe we'll mix it up after that.
Yeah.
Although I really want to do Death Race 2000 now that I know you haven't seen it. It's your episode next, so you have to pick the film. But so we're going to do the next 2 episodes. Maybe just do like 5 episodes then. 5 episodes in the 70s, and then we'll pick a new era.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we could just keep it on rotation. Keep it on rotation. So, we'll eventually come back to the 70s with 5 new films. I think that's fair.
I think that's fair, fun. Yeah.
All right, let's do it that way. All right. So thank you all for coming on this excellent journey with us. I'm so glad that Craig finally watched Rollerball. It's not the first time I've mentioned it to him. So I'm glad that you guys were here to bear witness to Craig liking a recommendation that I've been nagging him to watch. So I'm glad you liked it too.
Nice. Yeah, thanks, man. It was fantastic.
Excellent. All right. Well, my name's Tobias, and I'm an idiot.
And I'm Craig, and I don't know if I'm an idiot. Maybe I am, probably. If you don't know you're an idiot, maybe you are an idiot.
I mean, some sort of, self-awareness probably makes you transcend idiocy. So maybe I'm not an idiot. And maybe you're the idiot.
Possible.
All right, guys. Thanks for coming out with us. Much love. One love. We'll see you in the next episode. And until then, love you, Craig.
Love you too, man. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Shrapnel!